July 1st, so if you guys see me, that would be why. So welcome, we're glad to have you all. As a reminder, before we get started, can I have you all just take your phone out and turn your phone off and put it on silent, please? That would be great. Just a reminder, this is a free will donation event, so if you, on your way out, see that fancy little donation box, please feel free to put something inside of that. It takes a lot to run something like this. Everybody can hear me, right? We're good? Great. Just a reminder, every month at the first Friday of every month at noon, we have our Feed Your Mind, which is what we're on here. However, next month is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be on the first Saturday, on September 5th at 2 p.m. So same thing, different date, different time. So Saturday, September 5th at 2 p.m. And that will be John McNaylor, all the art that you see on the walls in here. He's the one who created all of that, so that would be great for you to come in and talk. One last reminder, on September 1st is when our 10K giveaway is done. So if you have not gotten your raffle tickets for $10,000, please do so. Each ticket is $20 a piece, or 6 tickets for $100, okay? We're giving away 3 prizes. One is $5,000, and then 2 other prizes, second and third, are $2,500. So, you know, that'd be nice for a little Christmas gift, right? Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to introduce to you Abby Showers for the flood of 1881.
For having me back. I'm excited to be here again for another Feed Your Mind. I did one, I think, a couple of years ago. But it's been a little while since I've been around, so I'm super glad to be back. And what an awesome crowd. Thank you all for coming today. As I said, my name is Abby Shower, and I am the lead park ranger for interpretation at Missouri National Recreational River, which is a unit of the National Park Service right here in Yankton, and protecting about 100 miles of the Missouri River. So hopefully most of you in here know about Missouri National Recreational River already. If you have heard that name before, feel free to raise your hand. Okay, fantastic. So a lot of you. But there's still a lot of people out there that don't know that we have a super special gem right here in our backyard. That is the Missouri River and a national park site. So I have worked for the National Park Service for about 8 years now. I've been kind of all over the place. My very first park was Mount Rushmore, which I see a shirt right here of Mount Rushmore. So started as an intern there, had a really awesome time, graduated from South Dakota State University. Go Jacks. Yes, thank you. I try to always say that in Vermilion as well. Yes. After graduating, I studied ecology and environmental science at SDSU. In hopes of becoming a park ranger, because it was always my dream to become a park ranger for the National Park Service. My family visited national parks growing up. We always packed up our pop-up camper, went out to national parks, and just had the best time ever. So I was like, if I could do that as a job, that would be pretty amazing. So here I am living that dream. My sister is also living that dream. She's a park ranger for the Park Service as well, over in Bighorn Canyon, Wyoming. Anyone been to Bighorn Canyon before? Okay, a few folks, nice. So it's a family affair, but super happy to be here. I've worked at Rocky Mountain, Grand Canyon. I fired cannons at Fort Scott National Historic Site in Kansas, and that was a blast. Thank you. All my good teachers there. And then I really wanted to be back in the area, because I'm originally from Spencer, Iowa. So just Spencer. So that's only about 2.5 hours from here. It's so nice to be back, closer to my family, and I really love the community of Yankton. I've been here for about 3 years now, and really enjoying it. It's so awesome here, right? Yes. So, I'm assuming a lot of you live in the area as well. And so we probably all have experience with rivers and with floods, which we're going to be talking a lot about today. So Spencer, Iowa, also right along the river, so I'll be talking a little bit about my own personal experience, but I also want to hear from you all. To be honest, the Mead Museum asked me to talk about this topic. So up until a couple of weeks ago, I did not have a ton about the flood of 1881. I have a whole bunch of knowledge share with you today. But I know that lots of you probably know a lot as well. So I want to hear from you. I'm sure you've had personal experiences. Maybe some of you know about this flood and want to share it, and I want to hear from you. In fact, Bob Foley even gave me a book just a few minutes ago about some more information that I get to share. So I think that's really awesome. Programs are much better when it's a collective conversation. So get ready to answer a few questions as well. So my first question for you, and I'm going to see if I can move over to the board here a little bit. I know not everyone's going to be able to see this whiteboard, but I'm just going to be writing a few things down. I'll repeat it all so that you can all hear if you can't see the board. But what comes to mind when you hear the word flooding? So what I'm looking for here, just some words that pop into your mind right away when you hear the word flooding.
Devastating.
Devastating. All right, I heard too much water.
Danger.
All right, danger.
Snakes.
Snakes? Okay, snakes. Might need to hear more from that person. Snakes. Okay, what else? What? Covering? Recovering. Yes. Okay. Mud. Expensive damage. Okay, I think that's a pretty good list for now. So we're going to come back to that in a little bit. And so you'll have, if you didn't share your word right now, you'll have another chance too. So you can keep thinking about that as well as we continue on with the presentation here. But what comes to mind when I hear the word flooding? So I myself am big into weather. I've always been fascinated with weather. I have been out chasing tornadoes before with my dad. I'm a trained storm spotter, and really weather phenomena is always amazing to me. With a name like shower, maybe I missed my calling as a meteorologist, but I think park ranger suits me as well. But one weather, so I'm always looking at radar, right? Watching radar, seeing what thunderstorms might be coming, see if I can see one of those super cool shell clouds. But one watch or warning that I really never paid much attention to was the flash flood, right? We get the flash flood warning watch quite often, and most of the time, does that anything really happen? Not really. So really that's not one I ever paid attention to up until about 2 years ago, when I was heading home to my hometown of Spencer, Iowa. My grandparents, on June 20, they were going to celebrate on June 22nd, 2024, their 25th wedding anniversary. So my first grandma passed away, got married, had a wonderful new grandma, and they were celebrating a milestone wedding anniversary. So I was excited, since now I'm close to home, I get to go celebrate with them down in Carroll, Iowa. So go to my parents' house, spend the night there. On the night of the 21st, we get some thunderstorms and some rain. And when we're trying to leave Spencer, this is what we are encountering as we are trying to exit. So this is a little video. I'm going to see if I can get it to play. Okay, mouse down here. So we got up early, like at 6 a.m. or so. Well, just imagine water rushing the road. You can see some ripples there. So my parents and I, 6 a.m., wasn't the time we were going to leave, but we heard that there was flooding. So we were going to just go check out the area and see if there was a way out of Spencer. So we went south first. This is what the road looked like, and it was just pretty much rushing over. We went north to see if we could get out of town that way. Again, water rushing over the road, and really any outlet to get to Carroll, Iowa was completely blocked by water. And so we're like, well, I guess we're not going to Carroll today. And so we actually, at this point still, we weren't too urgently worried. We actually went to a brand new donut shop in downtown Spencer, which I don't think was open again after that day. So that's kind of sad. We got one of the one-day donuts only. And we went back to my parents' house. And my dad needed some gas, so he went a little out of town to a location to get some gas, and by the time he was coming back to the house, he did have to drive through 1.5 feet of water to get back. So this flood these waters are rising rapidly. Thankfully, a lot of my parents' house is at high elevation in the town, and so we weren't super impacted, but just wanted to paint the picture a little bit of how fast this can happen. So, and I'm sure, as you can see in the map here, we are here in Yankton are in this as well. So you probably remember 2 years ago, I think it was like when Cook Lake had really bad flooding as well. Same weather system that hit Spencer, Iowa. So you can see the red precipitation there in the corner. And so some reports were that there was 10 to 20 inches of rain dumped in some areas. All these areas at least got 2 inches. And as you can see, let's see here, Spencer is right here. We have 2 rivers that are flowing in, and there's lots of rain up in the east and north portion as well. So all of those rivers that are feeding the Ocheyedan and Little Sioux River are also full. All of this rain dumped, and within a couple hours, this is rising very fast. So the city, I've lived in Spencer since I was 4 years old, so over 20 years, and I've seen flooding happen a lot, right? The Leach Park always was, so that wasn't anything crazy. The city was preparing for a 17-foot rise, but ended up rising to 22 feet and totally devastating a lot of Spencer, Iowa. Over 800 people had to be rescued from their homes by boat. There was even more devastation to local community, or the like shops and stuff downtown. There was worry that the bridge was going to be knocked out. So back my parents, thankfully we had no water, which you feel a little bit bad as well, that everyone in town is suffering. And let's see, I have a couple pictures here. So this is like the main drag of Spencer, Iowa. There's the river right there. This is the bridge that one of the bridges that they were worried about. Here's the Dairy Queen that I went to all the time growing up. This is the road I took to school. And so just, you hear about devastating things, but when it actually happens to you and people you know, it's just something different. So like people that I knew personally were having to be rescued from their roofs, out of their homes. And it was just a really scary time. But just like communities do, we're going to talk about the 1881 flood as well, that community as well. We come together in times of crisis. So search and rescue crews were going out and rescuing people, Good Samaritans, coming together to help one another out. So that's kind of my story with flooding, and really puts in perspective what the people of 1881 were experiencing as well, right? Because that's quite a while ago. And sometimes when you hear about those events, it's hard to really put it in perspective. But hopefully, my story can paint the picture a little bit of how it is a devastating event. I'm sure, has anyone here been impacted by flooding, either their own homes or people they know? And it is very upsetting, very devastating. But it also allows us to be there for each other and to support one another in time of need. So floodwaters can result in overwhelming change and overwhelming loss, but they can also reflect the resilience of not only the natural world, but of communities and of ourselves, right? So driving through Spencer now, 2 years later, a lot has changed. There are businesses that are no longer there. The places that I knew might be gone, and while I'm a super sentimental person, this is super sad to me, and I'm still grieving with those people that lost so much. I'm also going to try to now attempt to paint the picture of what a natural flowing river of the Missouri looked like a long time ago, before a lot of civilization was present along its banks. So, as we enter this portion, I want you to think again what comes to mind when you hear the word flooding, and we're going to add a few more things to the board here in just a second. So, long time ago, in a land really close to here, the Missouri River, in its natural condition, flooded frequently. And it produced, I'm going to say a really big word here, I'll explain it in a minute, but it created heterogeneity along the floodplain. So the Missouri River meandered across its floodplain on a massive scale. And this picture here is a painting done by George Catlin, who went up the Missouri River after being inspired by the Lewis and Clark expedition. And he did tons and tons of paintings that you can find. And this is one from the area here. And there's lots of other ones as well, so I would encourage you to check those out. But in the early 1800s, the Missouri River was 150 to 200 miles longer than it is today. Because in its floodplain, it moved so much back and forth that there was always a new channel and a new distance that it was carving. So during this time as well, the river itself was 1 to 3 miles wide in some areas. So super wide river, meandering across its floodplain. And as you go south from here, it's also reported that the floodplain itself was 3 or 5 to 18 miles wide. So the floodplain is the distance that the river is moving between. So who here has driven on Highway 50 to Vermilion? Probably a few of you. I was just in a car with one of my seasonal staff the other day, and we were looking off in the distance, and you can kind of see bluffs on either side, right, north and south. And you think about that is the floodplain, where this river used to move back and forth, and how amazing that really is. It's a huge river valley, and it is a huge, powerful river. So when floods happen, and this river is moving back and forth, it provides heterogeneity, which means that there are lots of different types of habitats and pieces of vegetation and for wildlife and stuff along this stretch. So there are meanders, there are oxbow lakes, there are sandbars, and we're really lucky because Missouri National Recreational River is protecting the remnants that are left of this historic river that is naturally free-flowing and creating. Of course, it doesn't quite flood like it used to because of the dams and the modifications that have been made to the river, but it really provided this amazing habitat and ecosystem for all kinds of plants and animals in sort of a successional manner. So as this river is moving back and forth, it's knocking down trees right into the water. So who's been out on the river and seen the huge trees that are just sticking up out of the water? If you're driving a boat, I hope that you're seeing that, because that can be an issue. We paddle the river a lot too. We're always going in and around snags. We see them laying down and the water is kind of cascading over, making a little eddy. So it's really neat to see that still today. But this provided really a unique habitat in the river here. So in 1872 to 1881, the first floodplain vegetation survey happened in this area. And the survey noted that what Lewis and Clark wrote in their journals was confirmed, that there were several types of forests identified in kind of a successional manner. And about 80% of the floodplain was dominated by plants like the cottonwood, peach leaf willow, and other willow shrubs that were ranging in ages. So that's another thing with the heterogeneity, is that these different forests and vegetation plots are going to be different ages because the water moving so much is causing that to happen. So there were some dense stands on the lower benches of the floodplain, and up on the higher ones, there were cottonwood forests that had cottonwoods 4 to 6 feet in diameter. So those have been growing for quite a long time. And then as the wild Missouri kind of changes, it goes back and forth, right? I have this, I'm sure you've seen this image before. Anyone seen this one? A few, okay, maybe not a lot. So this is a really cool graphic, I think designed by an artist that someone told me their name yesterday and I already forgot. So bad with names. But shout out to them, this artist that made this. So the 1860 is kind of that tan, and then 2004 is the gray, and very similar to what we see today. So as you can see, the Missouri River from even 1860 to 2004 has had lots of variation and changes in the channel. So this brought all kinds of things into the river that are going to provide habitat for a lot of different creatures. So I saw someone diversity that you can find in this historic river. And really, there's a lot of cool stuff in the river as well. So some of the big players were the catfish. These are some top predators in the river, and the pallid sturgeon, of course, which is an endangered species. So those, along with a lot of other creatures as well. So this dynamic mosaic, I'll say, of river habitat provided really something for everyone. So there are sandbars for the least terns, for the piping plover, for the killdeer. There are, of course, aquatic habitats for toads and frogs, and the mammals that live along the water as well, mink and beaver. There are these big forests that can really accommodate those songbirds that we're used to seeing. And then, of course, there were plains along the river as well that a lot of the elk and bison that used to be in here, we don't see a ton in this area today, but they loved the river as well and definitely needed it for survival. So, after that portion, I'm going to come back to my question here. So I didn't put the slide in again, which I should have done. But now that we've gone through that, what are some things that come to mind now when you hear flooding?
Sandbagging 2011.
Sandbagging 2011. All right, what else? Yeah.
Animals drowning.
Yeah, animals drowning. What else? Yeah.
I'm from Vermillion, so I think about moving to town.
Moving to town. Yep. We'll say having to move.
Disease.
Disease.
Despair.
Despair.
Natural.
Natural. I was hoping I'd get a few. There's some positives to flooding too, right? Maybe not to us humans, but yeah. Anything else that you guys want to add?
New habitat.
New habitat. Love.
Rich farmland.
Rich farmland. That is 100% true. I was the best one, right? Change. Perfect. Any others that we want to add? Okay. So, a lot of cool things along the river here. And by raise of hands, who here kind of decided to live in this area because of the resources that the river provides? So a few of you. And maybe in a roundabout way, there's even more of you. But people, historically, have long settled along rivers, right? Even many, many years before our time, different tribes were settling around the rivers as well. The Mandan, the Hidatsa, the Arikara established the first known gardens along the Missouri River. And then about 1,000 years later, we have the very first capital of the Dakota Territory right here in Yankton being set up right along the river because it provides a lot of awesome benefits, right? So at this time, transportation was huge for the river. There was really rich farmland so that they could grow their crops. And there was lots of food and shelter that was being provided, a lot of trees in the area so that people could build their homes, steamboats, all those things. And so, as people moved in, a lot of those floodplain forests started to be used up, and things in the floodplain changed from the mosaic of the natural flow of things to more being cultivated by the people living here. Because, is it attractive to live along a river? You guys like it? Yeah. It is really nice. And so, this is not a new idea though, that's fun to live along the river. The first, here we are coming into the main meat and potatoes of the program today. So the people that settled in what is called, some call Green Island, was actually also called Stromberg. So the first person to kind of settle in the area, which is just across the river from Yankton here on the Nebraska side, was a man named Sadie. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, it's a Swiss name. Sadie Strom. And he came here around 1856, 1857. I saw kind of differing dates, so I'm just going to say both of them. And he got some land on that side of the river and started making kind of his settlement there. So he first obtained 182 acres bordering the river via a military warrant. And then he also got a little bit more land because probably some of the land was falling into the river from being cut out and stuff. So he got some for his home, some for agriculture as well. And at that time, he sets up this village of Stromberg. In 1872, it was about 6 to 15 feet above the river level, which they thought would be a safe distance. Dun, dun, dun. That would be the case. So some other places were popping up in the area as well. A post office just near there, which was named Elm Grove. You want to guess what was right next to this post office? A Grove of Elms, yes, that's correct. So things are popping up, and people are coming to the area. Just a year later, 1858, is when Yankton is starting to be developed as well. And so things are coming together here in Stromberg. So there were dwellings, churches, and a whole bunch of stuff popping up. So as Yankton is being developed as well, they're also having a steam ferry go back and forth between Stromberg, or Green Island, and to Yankton and back. And it was one of the designated cities in Cedar County at the time. Stromberg was. And by 1881, the town had grown to about 150 people living in this area. So there were 15 dwellings, 2 churches, a school, post office, general store, hotel, blacksmith shop. And in spite of the name Green Island, there was actually no island. It was just along the shoreline there. But I heard it was green, so there we go. So that's kind of setting up the town before a few things are going to happen here. So by 1881, about 3,000 people were living in Yankton, so it's starting to become a busier place. And while we are talking today about the flood of 1881, it actually started in 1880 because the winter season of 1880 to 1881 was a historic winter season. So this is what Bob was giving me the book about. Any Laura Ingalls Wilder fans in here? So, I didn't get a chance to read this yet, but I'm just going to say what Bob told me, is that the book, The Long Winter, is about this winter, 1880 to 1881. And so, definitely, unlike a winter that I've ever seen here. So as I describe it, you'll have to let me know if you've ever experienced these conditions in winter here in Yankton. So, starting in October, I think it's not uncommon to have snow in October, right? That happens sometimes. But it was unrelenting winter. So, October to late March, there was heavy snow, there was record low temperatures, and so by, it was like February, there were 4 feet of ice on the Missouri River. So, Missouri River is flowing underneath 4 feet of ice. Has anyone seen 4 feet of ice on the river? Maybe that's because of the dams and stuff as well. Now, I'm from the Midwest, from Iowa. I've definitely driven on Lake Okoboji before in like 1.5 feet of ice when we were drilling down to get to the fish, and I thought that was a lot. 4 feet, I can't even imagine. But the heavy snow continued. And the snowpack from October was staying through the whole winter because of the cold temperatures. So really, this heavy snow is just stacking up. And I did read, Bob told me this too, that they were having trouble getting trains through the area, and that farming was really a full-time job trying to keep your cattle and livestock alive during this winter. So really, truly was a long, hard winter from 1880 until 1881. Then, in the first weeks of March, some warm southerly winds start to blow across the western territory, which is freeing up some of the ice further upstream. So this accumulation of snow and ice, pretty significant, And when these warm southerly winds are blowing across and melting some of the ice further upriver, and this picture here obviously has the big lakes and the dams, but none of those were here at this time, obviously, and so it's just got it's following its path down towards us. So the first freeing of ice actually happened right up here near Williston, North Dakota. So pretty far ways away from here, near Fort Buford. So as this ice is breaking up, it's just going to gain momentum as it heads down from Bismarck, and it is roaring down the river and breaking up all of this ice that is on top of the river in crazy fashion. It said that it literally rumbled as the river is coming because it's basically ripping, the water is ripping the ice up, the 4 feet of ice, like shingles off a roof. And now all of this debris is ripping down the Missouri River. And I wanted to put this picture in too because you can see how much drainage goes into the Missouri River, right? A lot of rivers are flowing in, a lot from cold areas as well. So as the meltwater is just feeding this, it's just getting to a huge amount of water that is being fed into the river and it's ripping down. So the worst flooding and ice jams, because it's not just water that's coming down, right? So now we got like bobbing 4 feet of ice chunks that are coming down and heading towards these areas. So the river pounded places like Fort Pierre and upriver from us as well, but it was in this area where some of the most devastation happened. So normally, when the ice is melting, it's kind of a gradual thing, right? So it's not as devastating or catastrophic as this time, as it's breaking up these huge ice chunks and carrying them down. One cake that was witnessed here in Yankton was said to be 10 acres and 4 feet thick. So imagine that coming down the river at you, at your homes, at your farms, at your livestock. So it had to be a pretty terrifying event. So at this time too, the river is moving a lot, right? So what would happen is that these huge chunks of ice and debris that's in the river would cause like a temporary dam. And it would get caught on the logs or a sandbar, and then within a short amount of time, it's gonna raise the water level 4, 5, 6 feet before it breaks. And then with even more force and vigor is going to run down further downriver. So here, I'm sure the steamboat operators were worried a little bit here because they left a lot of their steamboats here in the Yankton area. So as this is coming, this actually knocked punched holes in several of the steamboats and sent several of them downstream without crews. So not ideal for them either. And then, of course, we have our, I forgot to switch to the, I'll just pause mode so you can take in the 4 foot thick ice cake and some of the steamboat damage. Crazy, right? Yeah. I can't even imagine what that was like. Now, in your time here, has there been, actually, this last winter, did the river even ice over at all? I don't think I saw that ice over. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, pretty crazy pictures here. Here are some pictures of the steamboats that were hanging out in the area, and obviously in a little bit of trouble there. The Helena was one that got holes punched in it, and I don't think they had the pictures of the ones that got sent further down the river, for obvious reasons. So, a lot of devastation already happening. So let's get to our folks here in Green Island. So, obviously, be pretty scary to be living along the river when this massive force of ice and water is coming right at you. So this is a drawing of villagers that were taking refuge on a roof of a house. So the 150 inhabitants of Green Island, right there on the bottomlands right next to the river. And in late March to early April, this is when this force is just ripping through their town. And it carried off, it just ripped buildings off their moorings and carried them down the river. I read a story about folks in Yankton getting on their roofs and watching the scene unfold as the church is being carried away down the river. In the book that I read, it even said that they could hear the bell tolling, even though there was no bell in the church at that time. That's what one of the books said. So yeah, they could hear the bell tolling as it went down. And after the church, building by building followed, all being carried away, except for a half of a building that was made out of brick. And there was only one that survived in the town of Green Island. So in 2 hours, every single house, dwelling, business was torn away, except for the one half house that people took refuge on. So this brick Nelson house refused to be swept away, and I think they were hanging out on the roof for quite a while. There's another story coming up here too of other people that were hanging out on roofs, because obviously there's still more towns coming up, right? So great loss of property, but thankfully no one in Green Island died that I could find. So that was fortunate. A number of farms, though, were devastated as well, taking everything, their barn, their livestock, so total devastation. Among these were Sadie Strong, the founder of Stromberg, and he lost 60 acres of land, his house, his barn, horses, cattle, lost being around $12,000. So I did a quick Google search, so we'll see if this is super accurate. But they said the total devastation, I think in Cedar County from this flood was about $100,000, which today would look maybe like $3.2 million. So pretty devastating for sure. So John Nelson is the one, another person who had really a lot of damage. And his was a house that was constructed of brick that people took refuge on. And it said that the Reverend was saying prayers as they're up there on the roof, that they would get out of there safely. Now, and then about 8 at a time, they were safely conveyed onto a skiff and moved over to a different house a couple miles away. But 2 miles east of Green Island, there was another house owned by Mr. Grimes, and that's where 30 people were on the roof waiting for safety. So they were in the house, and they got driven to the barn, and then on the roof, they spent time on the roof of the barn from like 3 a.m., or 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 3 a.m. So getting really cold. A few brave people decided to go kind of across the ice to get out of there. They made it, but they estimated it was like 14 feet deep of water under some of that ice. So definitely not an ideal situation to be put in, and pretty brave of them to continue on and get to safety. So while no people died in Green Island, I did see some that reported there were some deaths because of the flood of 1881. Maybe approximately maybe 15 people from Yankton to Sioux City, but great numbers of cattle died as well. So over 50,000 cattle, they're estimating, were taken away. And like I said, $100,000 of damage in that time. So crazy devastation for the town and all in the area. And of course, this is the same flood that later moved on to Vermilion and wiped Vermilion off the map as well. And while they did decide to rebuild Vermilion a little bit higher, Green Island never did make a recovery in its current area. And now the Green Island that we know today is an island and is one of our park properties, which maybe I'll talk about here at the end. So yeah, as you can tell, this was a very monumental occurrence that happened in this area, not only because it provided, or caused, I should say, a lot of devastation, it also is going to impact the future. So there were floods like this, maybe not quite like this, but this is like the first recorded by Europeans or that we have a recording of a flood like this. And there had already been talks about, how are we going to prevent this from happening again? How do we protect our agriculture businesses that are so important to us? And so actually I guess there's just a few pictures that I forgot to click through, so some more flooding pictures that I could find. But even before 1881, a guy named Major Charles Seward was talking about a Missouri River improvement plan and kind of coming up with a way to prevent floods like this from happening and protecting homes and protecting people and protecting the farmland. And actually, it was the same year that this flooding occurred that Charles Seward went and petitioned to Congress to talk about his Missouri River improvement plan. And also, I think it was in 1882, there was a convention that was held to develop a committee that would then petition Congress again to talk about ways to protect the river. So talks were already in place, like I said beforehand, but now because of this devastation that has happened, obviously even more reasoning to protect the prosperity of the area, right? At that time, agriculture is the way to have a successful quality of life. And when we're building our homes next to the river, all of that is threatened if we can't have some control over this wild Missouri. So on the 2nd of August, 1882, the Missouri River Improvement Convention went to Congress, petitioned, and actually got an act passed to provide some support for improving the Missouri River. And Congress designated $850,000 to begin that endeavor. And up until this point, the 5 years prior to 1881, they had only received $861,000. So in 5 years, they've now basically doubled their money from what they had received before. And things are going to obviously change. So I'm not going to go into fully all of the different changes that have happened to the Missouri River, because it'll probably be here for a while longer. But because of this flood, we now have, it was really the kickoff to some of the changes that have occurred on the Missouri. And so we all know that there are 6 earthen dams now that help protect from flooding. They store water for irrigation. They do a whole bunch of benefits, including providing us great opportunities for recreation, which is a huge thing here in Yankton, and something I partake in as well. So while the 1881 flood, I'm sure, impacted obviously all the people of that time, it still impacts us today as it kicked off some of the major changes that happened here to the river. So, again, one more question, or the same question. What comes to mind when you hear the word flooding? Hopefully, you have quite a wide perspective. Just like the Missouri River is wide, a wide perspective of what flooding can do. I'm not going to be up here saying that flooding is inherently bad or inherently good. Obviously, it's not great for people that are living along the river. In fact, it's devastating a lot sometimes, but it is also part of the natural process of the river that renews and restores ecosystems. And so, hopefully today, through this presentation, you've had the opportunity to learn a little bit about what happened in the flood of 1881, but also learn about yourself, and it offers an opportunity to reflect on what we would do in those types of situations. Because really, they do bring people together. I haven't been more inspired than when I saw my whole community of Spencer, Iowa come together to really support each other in a time of need. I worked at one of the little donation centers where people were bringing in bedding and clothing and toys for kids that lost everything. So it's really amazing that we can support each other. And this actually happened in 1881 as well. Crystal, I watched a video of you. Yeah, talking about the flood of 1881. Talking about how this made national news, the the flood of 1881. And people were sending barrels of supplies to the people that had lost everything. And I think one of the books, I don't know if it's still here, but is here on display. And obviously, people went to great lengths to protect stuff from the flood as well. So while flooding can be overwhelmingly causing loss and change, it also can allow us to reflect on how start anew, or in the natural world as well. So, if anyone else has anything to add about the flood of 1881, maybe something I forgot, I'm happy to hear that, but I do want to say thanks for coming out today. Hopefully you had a great time. I know that Crystal's going to come up now and talk about the dress that I saw a lot of people taking a picture of, so we'll have her come on up. But thank you for having me today, and I'm excited to hear about this dress as well.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Crystal Mensch, Executive Director here at the Mead Museum. And we're working on putting together our new permanent exhibit, which is a Dakota story, the first 100 years of Yankton history. And this dress was a piece that's getting ready to go into its exhibit case. And we had decided, since we were going to talk about the flood and Abby was going to be here, you guys got a little sneak peek of being able to see it before she goes on display. The dress, not Abby. As well as the children's book that she was talking about, it's a little canvas, indestructible children's book that came out of a relief barrel. And that'll be on display with the dress as well. What's great about this dress is how far it really did travel. It was, well, I belong to, it was made in Yankton by a seamstress for Hattie Seacombe's wedding in 1880, late 1880, 1881. I think she was going to get married a couple months after the flood happened. So she had to abandon this dress in their Green Island home. I think in their Green Island home, it may have gone so far with them, but it basically got abandoned because she could not, save yourself from your wedding dress situation. And what I love is the truly romantic part of this story is that Hattie was one of those people. Remember seeing the picture of all the people on the house, the Nelson House in Green Island? Okay, she was one of those rescued from the roof. And she was rescued by her betrothed, which is awesome. I know. James Marsh was her betrothed. And he, after rescuing his fiancée, he did go back for the dress. So he rescued the wedding dress, they did get married, and the dress was handed down through generations and ended up in California. And one of the descendants of this couple was volunteering at a museum in California in the early 2000s. And in 2014, she had died and had donated the dress to the local museum that she'd been working with. But they had all this story behind it, and so they took all this time, which was amazing, to reach out and find us and say, hey, would you guys like this dress from your flood? It is their family. Do you know anything about this? I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. So they sent it to us in 2014, and we've been taking care of it ever since. It's a really fantastic piece, obviously an incredibly tiny piece. We have custom made all of our mannequins because people are just so much smaller than what we can get mannequins for. But you can definitely admire it. Please do not touch it. She's very fragile. But you can tell some discolorations, and that very well been like that from the very beginning. She's got quite a few buttons on the front, which means her dad, who was a minister, he was sent out here by Reverend Ward, spent a lot of money having this dress made. So she probably wore it stains and all. So. Questions about that? I just wanted to make a short little thing, but Abby, if you have anything else?
Questions at all? All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for coming. I'll hang around here a little bit if you want to chat. Happy to do that. But
I would like to add the brick house.
yeah.
We just lived north there,
Okay.
or west of it, and we were in that house. We saw the flood line on the wall upstairs, the water line.
Amazing.
And where we live now used to be Green Island.
Yep.
And when we found the mortgage papers or the abstract papers, when we bought our property, it looked like it just kept going from one owner back to the bank, and then somebody else would buy it, and then go back to the bank. We could never figure it out, but Sam Nelson, who was John Nelson's son, our friend and neighbor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And he sort of enlightened us on sort of hearsay history. about the abstract
Yep.
of the property that we have. And he said basically, if it was people that came there, they would harvest ice on the river in the winter. They'd make their money and move on. So the property go back to bank. And somebody else would buy it. And that might be in the spring, and it was somebody coming to harvest wood from the trees. They get what they wanted and let it go back to the bank. And it's just a string of people, names we didn't even know, of course. That's constantly going back to the bank, and then somebody else would buy it. And actually, our living room is a preserve, in our dining room, we have a preserved part of that that was actually a corn granary at one time.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a very historical piece, so we never ever destroyed it. Remodeled and built our own, but it was kind of neat. So we know a lot of that history, and then Sam and his wife, our neighbors. I don't know if their kids are here yet, called. But anyway, their mother put a lot of history together. Wow, pretty cool.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share a story? Yeah.
I grew up on 8th Street and Mulberry here, and I remember as a child seeing pictures of steamboats that had washed out from the river that were sighting across 8th Street and the railroad track.
Wow.
That would have been 8 blocks from the river.
Yeah. Very cool. I love hearing this stuff. Anyone else want to share a story? Well, there's lots of cool stories out there, so definitely do share if you have one too. But again, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to the Mead Museum for hosting this awesome event. It's always great to partner with you guys. And everyone have a